Hi guys, welcome to We're Menstrual, the podcast, a series of conversations about the ebbs and flows, literally and metaphorically, of life, and a safe space to discuss periods. So today's guest is a floral artist. She's a mother and also a woman I've known for a really long time, Rhianna Beaumont. And
Hi.
First, just general question.
Yeah.
How are you today?
Today I'm good.
Good.
I've had a nice relaxing morning.
Good.
Like centering myself and like over the past, I'd say 3-4 months, I've really focused my lifestyle into giving back to myself. So I find in my mornings and my days, they're getting better and better as time goes on because I'm understanding the importance of doing that and the negative effects that can happen, the widespread negative effects that can happen when you don't.
Yeah.
So it's really important for me to do that.
Love that. Love that.
I was literally talking to a friend yesterday saying like the Rhianna that came into 2024 versus the me I am now, two different kettles of fish. And it's in a good way. Yeah.
I love that.
I've done like a lot of internal work, a lot of healing, a lot of external work as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's all coming together really nicely.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I think it's really important to feel the evolution for yourself.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people, if you met someone in January and they met you now, they might be able to feel the difference.
Yeah.
But when you're doing the work yourself, it's hard to acknowledge that, oh yeah, no, it actually is happening. I actually feel myself honouring that boundary.
Yes.
Or like actually feel myself doing what I said I would do.
Yeah.
Or not doing what I said I wouldn't do. Because I think
Yeah.
that's also important.
This is the thing. And I think when you're the person setting the boundaries, it's difficult for you to initially see the positivity out of it because when you set boundaries with people, a lot of the time it's met with negative backlash and then it makes you feel even worse. Like, am I doing the right thing or not? But the negative backlash is the positive result.
Exactly.
Because it's needed.
Exactly. So taking things back, do you remember when you started your period?
I do. I remember it. I'm cringing.
Go for it. Do you remember how old you were?
I was 13.
Okay. Where you were?
Yes, I was at school.
Okay.
When I started, and I had to go to, well, I didn't have to, but I only felt comfortable to go to one of my friends who had given me a pad at that time. And she was like, oh, like, just go and tell your mum when you get home. But my mum wasn't there at the time. She had gone away. I can't remember where she went. I don't know if she went to see family or something like that. But I didn't tell my dad. I didn't say nothing. Like, I just rode it through, didn't know what to do. And like when I first started, I thought I'd cut myself. So I was just like, how the hell? Like, I sat there for 30 seconds like, how did I cut myself there? Like, what did I do? Like, and then I suddenly realized like, oh, like this is what it is. But these conversations never happened in my household, like in a Caribbean household growing up. Nothing. Like we're always taught to be quite like private about stuff. And yeah, I didn't tell my dad. I didn't know how to even tell my mum, but obviously I had to.
Yeah.
And after that first time of telling her, I've never discussed it again. No.
So what information did you know about your period before you started? Was it in the context of school? Was it in the context of friends, both?
In the context of school mainly. Obviously, like as teenagers you chat, but it's mainly the sex education you get in year 6 that I remember. Maybe it's because that like shocked and traumatized me as well. That's why I remember it. But that's it. And it's not good because the amount of knowledge that I needed like from then up until now, I severely lacked. There's so much lacking in the education system when it comes to like menstrual cycles and women's bodies specifically, because it's not just your menses that we need to talk about. It's hormones, it's lifestyle, it's the effects of stress. It's like we're reared to feel like our bodies work like the sun, like around the clock, like men's, and we don't. And we're chastised if we can't keep up with day-to-day life like men, and it's just...
Yeah,
it's not right.
It isn't, and you're absolutely right. Mine is similar. I want to say I started maybe at 9. So I was in primary school. I remember being in primary school, and my mum wasn't home, and my dad was.
Right. So
but my mum had kind of given me a book that had like a cartoon image of like what happens.
Yeah.
I remember reading it vaguely. I must see if I've still got that. But both my parents were kind of open to the conversation. So when I started, I thought I was dying.
Yeah.
So then I was like, help, like so dramatic.
My sister did that, sorry.
literally like hyperventilating, all this kind of stuff. And my dad was actually like, it's okay.
Yeah.
You started your period, blah, blah, blah. And then I remember he rang my mum.
Yeah.
And then they took me to Enfield Town. Like, that's my local town centre.
Yeah.
To get like a milkshake or something.
Yeah.
Just to like calm me down. They took me off school.
Oh, okay.
To say like, oh, like I'm not going to come in this day, blah, blah, blah. But I'd also remember feeling like, so what happens now?
Yeah.
So what does this really mean?
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean about my body? Like, how does it relate to anything?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have that context at the time.
Yeah.
And granted, when you're like 9 to 14, it's a bit young to kind of know what that context really means, especially in 2000 and whatever.
Yeah.
But now I think in terms of education, this is a lot of the reason why I wanted to start this podcast is because I felt like there wasn't enough conversation about how women are encouraged to like dissuade themselves from actually talking about it. But it's a really important conversation because it affects so much of everything that we are.
100%. And I personally feel like, and this is just like my own take on it, but I think a lot of it's rooted in shame and like hiding certain things about ourselves because like even coming on the podcast, I had the thought, okay, there's so much stuff that has happened with me and I have to like obviously explain these things. And it's like, there's an element of me that's like embarrassed about it because who else has been through it? Do you know what I mean? But I know I'm not the only one and I know I won't be the only one.
Yeah.
And it's through these type of conversations or like something like this that has led me to kind of discover what's going on with me in the first place. If I had known, if I had had the conversation earlier, I hope like it could have been a completely different situation, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's the key. Even if it wasn't a completely different situation, at least you were armed with the information. And that's always my thing. Like information is power, and being able to take that agency for yourself with that information to empower yourself really helps. In terms of how your period has showed up in your body moving forward into adulthood, would you say that it's been the same throughout your life? Generally, like either normal, did you know what normal was?
So this is like a very deep question because my initial answer was going to be, it's been the same, but it's difficult because now I'm armed with the knowledge that I do have. I know my period has always been extremely heavy, like extremely, like really, really bad cramps. I would say as time has gone on, my cramps have gotten worse and worse and worse.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, so there's times where like I'm on my cycle and it will wake me out of my sleep. And I can't do it without my sleep. Do you know what I mean? I can't. So like, it's very, very disruptive. And then like I'm thrown off for the next day. And then if I don't get enough sleep, just like how my body is, I'm like mashed for the next week. And then you're paying catch up on top of having kids, on top of having a job, on top of trying to live yourself, you know? It's a lot. Now that I've gone through the processes and procedures that I have and I've like got the correct medication and things that I need, my cycle is only just, when I say only just, I literally mean last week, my last cycle, has only gotten into a rhythm that is like, oh, so this is how everyone else has been living. I didn't know I had it that hard before, you know? So yeah.
Eesh. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So you were going to Bali.
Yes.
And
I was going to Thailand.
Okay.
I would have loved to have gone over to Bali as well. But I was going on my dream holiday. I was being treated and
Lovely.
like this is all like one big circle of like context and stuff like that. Because even the fact that I was being flown away and treated so nicely is part and parcel of like resetting my nervous system or like the beginning of resetting my nervous system. And a lot of, you know, your hormones being out of whack and things like that can be influenced by the people that are around you.
Absolutely.
So that's important. Like make sure like ladies
Good
are sticking in good company around good people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was being flown out. But the week or two before that, I was getting like increasing like cramps and like uncomfortable feelings in my body. And I've always had bad periods, heavy cramps and stuff like that. But this was just getting like, you know, when you just, you know, your body is getting a bit too much. And then I was laying down one day, just relaxing, like literally laying back on my bed, and I looked at my stomach and it just seemed like there was like a bump. And I don't mean a small bump. I mean like a fetus. That's the only thing I can like link it to. Like it was a huge lump, and I was like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
Because I would like to think I know my body pretty well. And in one instance I did, and another instance I didn't. But I used to go gym all the time. My stomach was completely flat. What the hell is this lump? So I'm like pressing it. And as I'm pressing it, I can like I can feel it inside my body as well. And I'm like, am I pregnant again? God, no. Like, not in like a bad way, but I had my first child when I was 19. So I've got 3 kids now.
Yeah.
So I had no plans to get pregnant again.
Yeah.
And I'm poking around, and like where I can feel it, I'm like, no, this must be like an ectopic pregnancy, or maybe like a pregnancy that's floating around my stomach. Like something wasn't right. Took loads of pregnancy tests. I wasn't pregnant. I spoke to my doctors. They weren't doing much of anything about it. I went to A&E twice at 2 different hospitals. Can I say the hospitals?
You can if you want to.
Yeah, I went to King's. Listen, I'm angry. I went to that's where I was born as well, yeah. And I went there, went through the whole like A&E process, and they told me there was nothing there. It was just a period cramp I was feeling. And I said, I've given birth 3 times.
I know.
Yeah. I'm telling you, I can feel something physiological, solid. What are you telling me? It's a period cramp. Like I had a male tell me that. I told him to go and get a female.
Yeah.
She said the same thing. They sent me away. I said, can I have a scan? They're like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah, but you can feel something in your body. Did they feel it when you went?
They were pressing all sorts, like they literally was doing everything they possibly could. And they were like, no, there's nothing there. But how, it like logically, it doesn't make any sense. I didn't feel heard. I wasn't heard or listened to. I went away, still didn't feel comfortable, like in the run up to going away. So I went to hospital. I was like, maybe I just got to go see someone else. Went there, showed her a video of it popping out of my stomach. And she was like, okay, clearly there's something wrong, but we won't give you a scan. They don't let us give you a scan in A&E. Again, I don't understand, because all I needed was an ultrasound scan. It takes less than 5-10 minutes to do. You could give me an answer. I've been here for 7 hours. Come on.
What?
Yeah, the A&E is ridiculous.
You were there for 7 hours?
Waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Back in the day, it's like 3-4 hours you're waiting. I think, and I can only assume, like, they don't see it as a priority. Other people are seen as a priority for, you know, a variety of different reasons. So she turned me away. But one thing she did say, like, obviously when you go into hospital, they go through like a checklist of like, do you have any other ailments? What is your family medical history? That type of stuff. Yeah. So she basically went through the questions. And one of the questions was, does your family have a history of cancer? Okay. Now, at that stage, my brother had died from cancer 6 months prior.
My condolences. Okay.
And shock to the system, obviously, because he was like generally a healthy person, doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, not overweight, like all of these things that you would think might increase someone's susceptibility to certain diseases. Yeah. None of these things. Died of colon cancer. So I explained that to her, and she was like, okay, given everything that's going on, I'm going to send a referral back to your GP. She said, I'm going to mark on there that you are like at high risk. She put on there something that wasn't technically correct at that moment, but she wanted to ensure that I was seen quickly.
That's what you need. That's an ally.
Yeah. And she said, like, she did say, don't tell anyone. Sorry. But I'm glad do you know what I mean? I'm glad she did it. Because she had to send a referral back to the GP, and the GP had to start a referral. And part and parcel of that was going and getting my blood tests and stuff done. Just to check everything. Yeah. So again, this is like in the run up to me going on holiday. Okay. Like
when was this all happening? Maybe the week before?
Like within like a week and a half before of me going. Okay. So she sends me to go and get a blood test done. I get my blood test done, and again they expedited that, which was nice. And I think that's because of the whole like susceptibility potentially to cancer and stuff like that. They tested my cancer markers, and from the top of my head, the maximum like limit it should be is like 35 or 45. Mine was 95. So hearing that, as you can imagine, I was literally like,
what is
my
going
whole world
on?
was ending because again, I had just lost my brother.
Yeah.
And then they're telling me this, and I'm like, okay, what the hell does this mean? Like I called my sister-in-law and I was like, what were my brother's cancer markers when he died? And she said 300. So I'm thinking, okay, just Rhianna maths,
Yeah.
1/3 of 300. If he was like at stage 4, then does that mean I'm at stage 1
yeah,
and a
yeah,
half?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
what is this and why is no
Yeah.
one taking it seriously? And literally, like, I was sitting here, like, really deep in the process that he had gone through, because unless you're going through something yourself, you don't really realize the depth of it. And then thinking about, okay, well, who am I going to leave my kids with? I need to write a will. Like, all of these things, I don't want to leave it and not do something that I should have done, you know? So I've got all of that stress going on whilst in the run up to like packing my suitcase to go and all of this stuff. So eventually I thought, do you know what? They're not dealing with it quick enough. I can't stress myself out going on holiday now, like not enjoying myself, thinking I'm going to like drop down at any point. So I went and paid privately for an ultrasound scan.
Okay.
And I went there, it was in Harley Street, and she scanned me and she said straight away, I have a 10 centimetre cyst on my left ovary. So that's why it looked like a fetus, because it was practically the size of a baby's head when you're giving birth, you know? And I was just like, okay, this is...
And what's the, is this all happening within that week and a half?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, like, what does that mean? Like, what... But she wasn't really saying anything. She's like, just go back to your doctors, let them know, so on and so forth. And again, I let them know, like, I'm literally going on holiday in a couple of days. Like, that's it. Like, I'm just going to wait for the referrals and wait to see what's going to happen. And I've heard about people having cysts before. Yeah. Like, continually, like, they'll get the surgery and they'll be removed and it'll come back. Yeah. But they're not prioritized at all. So I was just thinking, what's going to happen? Like, am I going to have to give birth to this thing? I don't know what a cyst is really. It's all really confusing. So now I'm at the time where I'm supposed to be going on holiday. I'm not, like, literally 2 days before, I'm not feeling good. I'm getting like what feels like a period cramp that is just not stopping. Like, the pain is getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Now, I've given birth 3 times, all vaginally, 1 being induced as well. And that was worse. That pain was worse. Yeah, it was worse. I didn't know what it was. I didn't understand why it was hurting. I literally was doubled over in pain. Like, no matter what painkillers I was taking, it wasn't doing anything. I ended up calling an ambulance. Well, I got the kids to call an ambulance, and they weren't coming. I came on the phone, like, I'm literally screaming, and I'm like, I need help. Are you gonna have to make your way down to A&E? I said, I can't stand up. I've got 3 kids in the house. I'm by myself. Yeah. Sorry, but you're gonna have to make your way.
No sense of grace, no sense of understanding, no sense of urgency.
Nothing. My mum used to work for 111, so I ended up calling her, and I can't remember what medication she told me to take, but she told me to layer like one with another, so it will work better together if you do it a certain way. I think one of them was naproxen and the other was something else. But I took it and it kind of like dampened down the pain a bit. And I was like, okay, maybe that was just like a one-off call. Yeah. Now I'm getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to make my way to the airport, jumped on the train to make our way down there. And I'm just like, I'm feeling very, what's the word? Delicate. Like, you know, when like, I wasn't on my period at the time, but you know, like when you're really heavy and you're just like, I just want to sit down. Like, that's how I felt. Yeah. Got to the airport and then the pain started again, like really, really bad. I tried to call my GP, weren't really much help. And then the pain wouldn't stop. So my partner took me to, like, you know, the information desks. They took us to one of the lounges that were in the airport, a private business lounge. Free. Nice. They were so nice, actually. They were really nice because I don't know if I was like a business person or like a screaming person in the lounge that people have paid for. But they let us in. They called an ambulance. They started giving me gas and air. And then, like, have you had gas in it before?
Yeah, no, I've had gas.
Right, so the first time you take it, it just knocks you knocks you for
when
six.
I had it, they gave it to me in my veins.
Oh,
it's I had a liquid one. What's it called? General
anesthetic.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I had that in my veins and it wasn't working. So they put it in my veins. This is when I was going to have a procedure. Oh. And they said, they were talking to me like, your hair looks nice. Yeah. But I everything I'd read and everyone I'd spoken to told me that when you get general anesthetic, you are out like a light.
In 10 seconds.
Not even that. Like 3 seconds, you're gone.
Yeah.
So he put it in, and he was like, "Yeah, your hair looks nice." I was like, "Thanks." And then he's like, "What do you do for work?" And I was like, "Why can I hear you still? This is not gonna work.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a procedure, and I'm gonna feel it." Like there was so much panic going on in my mind. And then I heard him say, "It's not working." And then they got the mask. He put it on my face, and I literally went,
Gone.
out.
I wonder why it didn't work.
Didn't work.
Wow.
The one in my face didn't work, but the mask, like a light.
So they gave me the gas in air, and then I started obviously feeling like really woozy, and my partner just had to deal with everything. And thank God I had the sense to pack my paperwork that I had from the Harley Street clinic. So she gave me a printout of what my cyst looked like.
Yeah.
It's like, like the ultrasound scans you get for babies, but it was a cyst baby basically. And like the measurements and all of this stuff. So he handed all of that to the ambulance.
Yeah.
They then wheel me in a wheelchair into the ambulance. And like what happens from here on out for a long while, I don't really remember, because I was just in pain, gas in air, in pain, gas in air. That's all I was like, that vicious cycle. Eventually get to the hospital. They put me into A&E, Hillingdon Hospital. Again, I'm mad as hell because they then left me there for hours with nothing. No gas in air. They wouldn't let me take it. It was like a portable thingy, but they wouldn't let me take it out of the ambulance. I think because I have to be observed while having it or something.
Yeah.
They didn't even give me paracetamol. Like, I was screaming down the whole of that A&E with nothing until...
Man, that negligence is so crazy.
It's really bad. And I couldn't understand. Like, I get hospitals, I get there's other people that need to be seen, I get there's priority, and I get you don't always get to see everyone straight away. But I'm quite a proactive and preemptive person. I let them know I'm in pain. It's very evident I'm in pain. I've got someone here with me going up, okay, can we have some paracetamol or something? Like, if they're coming to you, the amount of time it's taking you to have that conversation with them, you can issue something. Like, or tell him, if you can't issue it to me because there's procedure, tell him to go and buy some paracetamol for me, or give some sort of advice that's going to help. Yeah. I received nothing until I called my sister-in-law. And again, she had gone through this whole process with my brother, like being, like having cancer, being in and out of hospitals. I said to her, I'm in like A&E. They're not doing anything. I need pain relief. She said, go and ask for the head nurse.
And as soon when you've got someone that knows that alley-oop.
As soon as I said that, medication came straight away, because they don't want to get in trouble. Yeah. And it's like, but why do it? Why do it? Like, I can't.
You shouldn't have to take that, innit? You shouldn't
have to take it. Got my pain relief. Eventually, they moved me to a private bed, and then they started giving me morphine. And I know, like, again, I don't know much about medication. I'm not that well versed, but morphine sounds like it's a strong drug to me.
That sounds very strong. It sounds like it would knock you out.
Yeah, it wasn't knocking me out, but I was like, it was numbing the pain. Yeah. Eventually, they took me in for another scan, confirmed what I already had told them on my scan results there. So doesn't make sense. And then they said, we can't rule out ovarian torsion.
What's that? So
they said the cyst hadn't burst, because that's what they were concerned about. When a cyst bursts, it causes a lot of pain. Yeah. But torsion is when the cyst starts to like turn on itself. So if you think about a tether ball, it's like that. Your ovary is the tether and the ball is the cyst. Yeesh. And it was just turning on itself. And the more it's turning on itself, the more it's cutting off. Painful, but it's cutting off blood supply as well, isn't it?
Wow.
Like, so that's what I was experiencing. My ovaries being like twisted and twisted. How many times it's twisted, I will never know. But it was painful. Like really, really bad. So they said they're going to bring me into surgery that evening. So I'm supposed to be in the air right now. And I'm being told I'm going into surgery. So I had to sign loads of papers. I'm going to be honest, I don't know what I signed. I wanted it out and I wanted the pain to stop. I could have signed my life away. I don't know yet. Signed away any liability. I don't know. I just signed the paper. They took me in. And I'm not going to lie, like, I was so scared. I've been through a lot in life, yeah. And I would like to think I'm quite like a level-headed person. I'm one of these people that I might panic under normal circumstances, but when it's like high-pressure situation, I become very, very calm. In that situation, I wasn't calm at all. Like, you couldn't see it on my face. And I've been told, like, I'm quite a stoic person. So, like, I could be having all this stuff going on inside, but
on the outside,
it just looks like I'm normal. they hooked me up to all the stuff they need to hook you up with, like the monitors and stuff to go into surgery. And it was just going beep, 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 beep. My heart was like not stopping. And they were like, calm down. Like, you have to calm down. I was like, yeah, I'm fine.
Clearly, we can see the monitor.
Because I don't know do you know what I mean? Happening. So eventually, like...
And also, it's so different from what you thought you were going to do that day.
Yeah.
I think there's one thing knowing you're going to have surgery, and another thing when your day is as is, and then all of a sudden you're going to have surgery.
And it's like, because I'm someone that I like to seek knowledge, and again, I think if I wasn't as preemptive with things as I was, I wouldn't have gotten it as sorted as quickly. I wouldn't have gone and got that scan.
Yeah.
Therefore, they wouldn't have known what's wrong. I probably would have been there for longer.
Yeah.
God knows what would have happened.
Yeah.
And I did ask them after the fact, like, if it wasn't treated, it's not quote unquote a life and death situation, but it is a medical emergency. And just from like my understanding of things, again, hopefully someone can like shed more knowledge on this, but if your blood supply is getting cut off at any point to your body for like more than a minute, the tissue starts to die. And if the tissue starts to die, it becomes septic. And then if it becomes septic, you then get blood poisoning, right? If I had firmed that pain and got on that plane,
not worth thinking about.
You know?
It's not worth thinking
if I had landed in Thailand and then been rushed to hospital there as a black woman abroad.
Later.
I don't even want to think about it. Yeah?
No way.
So I have to, like, as much as in one sense I'm really like, oh, I didn't get my holiday and oh, they took long. Like, I'm glad I did what I did and it happened how it happened because at least, you know, I'm here, I'm safe. I've got, as far as I know, all of my pieces there.
Yeah.
But anyways, they went through the surgery. Like, I knocked out and then I woke up in like the hospital room and they came in and they basically explained that I had a 10 centimeter dermoid cyst. They won't know what type of cyst it is, I think, until they properly like cut it open. And it was benign as well. But it took a while for them to confirm that it was benign. I had to like write to them weeks later. But it was benign and they don't know why it happens. And I don't understand.
Yeah, because for you to feel it at 10 centimeters, I don't know. I feel like...
This is another thing. So, remember I told you I went to Lewisham Hospital and they put the referral through. Now that's still like working its way through the paperwork and like the system. This incident that happened separately because it was via the airport, right? So that referral goes through. They then sent me for a scan. Yeah. I obviously update my doctor, say I've had a surgery, blah, blah, blah. They say still go for the scan. I go for the scan. They scan my ovaries, right? And now I had the size of my ovaries from before I had the surgery. And I now have the volumetric size of my ovaries after the surgery. They told me they cut off the cyst and they only had to take a teeny bit of my left ovaries with it. I said, okay, is that going to affect like fertility? No, you should be fine. Cool. I then go to the scan. I'm pretty sure from my memory, like my right and left ovaries were roughly 30 cubic centimeters. Okay. My right is 30, this one's 3. They took the whole ovaries, right? They didn't even take half and call it a little bit. They took the whole ovaries. Practically nothing there now. Even though it's still like what is there is like healthy and whatnot. I'm like, but why did you not tell me the truth?
Why did you not tell me the truth? That's so important.
That's out of order. And I like, when I experienced that, I really had to mourn that within myself. And I know it sounds really, really silly, but you're born with all the ovaries that you're ever going to have, right? These are your kids that are going to potentially be implanted and like birthed into the world. And I really sat there and thought like, there's so many kids that I could have had from here. Like, they could have been a president, a doctor, like, do you know what I mean? And I know it's like, in one instance, it's not that big of a deal, but in another instance, I felt so robbed.
That's medical negligence, because you should have known that.
It's 3 different hospitals now, yeah? And I also said to them, look, what is a dermoid cyst like? What is that? How long does it grow? All of this stuff. And they said, it's benign. It's normally filled with not fluid, but like it could be bone, it could be hair, it could be teeth. It's almost as if it was trying to form a child. Yeah. That's what I said. Was that a baby that like was not implanted correctly? It's like, no. It's nothing
can form
like
hair
that.
Or teeth.
Yeah. And like this gave me so much insight into like patriarchy. And like, I know it's like a big jump, yeah. But like how the world has always been. Because if you think about it, if an egg but I'm assuming it was used to be an egg, can form hair, bones, teeth, so on and so forth, without being injected with a sperm. That means like the woman's egg is what forms the body of the person, and potentially the sperm is what forms the mind, body, and soul. Because if you think about it, if you take our arms and legs off, our brain and spinal column is what creates the main life of us, and that's in the shape of a sperm. The skull protects that, the spine protects it. And it just makes sense why, like, in so many, like, scriptures and stuff like that, the males are held, like, above, or, like, children take the name of their fathers over their mothers. And I know it's different in loads of different societies, but it kind of just, like, made a light bulb go off my head out. That kind of makes sense. But aside from that, I said, how quickly does this thing grow? They said 0.3 millimeters a year at a fast rate. It was 10 centimeters big.
The maths is not making maths.
So that's like 30 years.
I'm
33 now.
Yeah.
So at the time I would have been like 31 and a half.
Yeah, that growth is expedited by something.
Or not. Either it was expedited or it's always been there. Given that I've given birth 3 whole times, is this further medical negligence that they've seen this on the scan and said nothing? Because even with my last child, who at the time was only 3, that would have been still sizable. It would have been at least 9 centimeters big.
Yeah, based on the maths they told you.
With the previous child, it would have been at least 5 centimeters big. And before that, it would have still been a sizable cyst.
Yeah.
So,
and they're all sizes that you should be able to see. It's not like it was like that.
100%. I don't understand. Wow. Again, if it was expedited by something, and people always talk about how stress is like number one factor in things like that. And we never ever listen or like really deep just how bad stress can be for us until we're in a situation like this. Yeah. I really wondered, like, me going through the death of my brother, did that do it?
Maybe.
Because
I mean, yeah, that's if we put together the piece of information that you have now, it could have been a factor.
Yeah, I will never know. This is the thing, because if they never told me, they're not going to report it on my hospital records that there's this thing there. It's really like up in the air about what actually happened. But yeah, and then since then, like obviously I had the surgery, and I've been recuperating since then. And I know it was only keyhole. Yeah. However, it didn't feel like that within my body. Like it really took its toll on me. I've given birth naturally. I've not had like a C-section scar. And as much as it wasn't as big as a C-section scar, like still having your muscles cut really like impacted the infrastructure of like my core. Yeah. It took me so long to feel like I'm getting back to normal. And in the like aftermath of that surgery, I started feeling like really not good within my body, like constantly achy, constantly like groggy, constantly tired. I've always been a tired person, and that's likely due to my heavy cycles and like iron deficiency and stuff. But this was something chronic. And again, I was going to my GPs, not being helped in any way, shape or form. I then started bleeding for a whole month. Again, I was just like, what the hell is going on? I went to my GP, no answer. I'll just wait for it to stop. I was like, I know that's not normal. It's not normal. Or maybe your hormones are just misbalanced. Okay, but why? You know, or just wait for it to balance. I'm not bleeding every day for more than a month now, and it's just ridiculous. So I ended up going to A&E on New Year's Eve at the end of last year. Yeah. And they said to me that it might be pelvic inflammatory disease. I said, what the hell is that now? Like, what do you mean disease? Like, what?
When
like, do you
will
know what I mean?
end?
And it's like so much like misinformation, because I hear disease and I'm like, well, are you trying to tell me that I'm unhygienic? I'm like fastidiously clean. Yeah. So what do you mean? Like, how did I get a disease? And then I Googled it. That was the wrong thing to do.
Oh, was it telling you?
That was the wrong thing to do because I Googled it, and it basically said it's mainly triggered by STIs. And I was in a monogamous relationship, so then I thought,
nah, now it's arms house now.
Today. Like, what the hell? And then I went back the next day again, because I'm like, they're supposed to send over some sort of like prescription, and they didn't. And I was like, no, this is like, something's not right. They put me through like all the required tests. Nothing came up. So I'm like, so then what has caused this? Like, what is it? I actually spoke to a female gynecologist this time, as opposed to a male gynecologist or any of the other nurses that were there. And she was like, number one, don't ever Google anything. it's partly our fault because we're not explaining things to people properly, but it can be triggered by anything. Like you can just be naturally more susceptible, or there's things that might be like, you know, skew with your hormones and stuff at the moment that's causing this.
Yeah.
It could happen like in any way, shape or form. I also at the time had the copper coil in, and I thought maybe that like in my body is doing something. Again, like we need contraception if you don't want to have a child, but a lot of these things are not natural, if that makes sense. They're not like as God intended our bodies to be effectively. So I thought I'm just going to take everything that is in my body out of my body that was not naturally there and born with is coming out. So they took it out. They gave me medication to stop the bleeding and to like get rid of anything that might be triggering that. And that worked. And since then, more or less, I've been okay. My cycles have gotten better.
That's good.
Didn't realize I still wasn't perfect because at that time, they again referred me to gynecology. That was at the end of last year. We're now in September of 24. My appointment was in August. So it took 8 months to be seen by a gynecologist here. Given my history, you would think to expedite it. Nothing. I went and she basically scanned me. She said there was no more cysts. Everything looks fine with my ovaries. However, there's some shadowing like above my womb. And she basically diagnosed me with, try to pronounce this properly, adenomyosis, which I still don't fully understand how like that works. But like your womb cells are growing into the lining of your womb. I don't understand.
I don't know the full definition, but yeah.
And that is part and parcel of like why I experience as much pain as I do. Even like when I'm not on my periods, I'll get twinges and stuff, and I thought it was down to like the surgery I had before. It's probably that. Underlying again, there's a world like of research and stuff that goes into these sorts of things, but I don't think it's as in depth as it could be because we don't know that. I know that adenomyosis might have been a thing that triggered the pelvic inflammatory disease. We don't know how they're linked to one another. So on and so forth. Did the cyst trigger the adenomyosis? It's really confusing.
Never-ending questions. Never-ending questions. But that is actually quite the experience. So in terms of managing that now, what are you doing? What have you made lifestyle changes? Like, what does that look like?
100%. So I've tried to minimize my stress, and I think I'm someone that I function in high stress environments. So I don't notice I'm
like a high performing, like when you're stressed, like there's like high performing anxiety and like
I think
low performing anxiety. So when you're anxious, you're like,
and I don't. I think the overarching word is stoic. So I could be anxious, or I could be depressed, or I could be stressed. No one would know it. You would walk past me in the office and I'm like, hey, how you doing? Da-da-da. And I'll be the one like helping other people. And I've had to start recognizing within myself when I don't feel right. And again, like after what I feel like is a lifetime of like looking outside yourself for answers. This is where I go back to like healthy relationships and things like that. Like looking outside yourself for answers and not centering yourself, being gaslit, like taking on other people's opinions. Because they don't always fit in with how you feel, and then you like beat yourself up about it, like, oh, why do I think that? Why do you know what I mean? Just centering myself, and like I always say now that I'm listening to my womb, and instead of saying like my gut intuition, it's like what is my womb telling me? Do I feel comfortable or not? Do I want to do it or not? Do I feel that it's good or not? I've tried to stop saying, oh, I think things rather than I feel. And I'm trying to really work from like a place of I feel now, because you have to look after yourself, and work won't do it for you. And as much as like friends and family may want to, they're not in your body and they don't fully understand. And everyone also has their own lives. So you have to really take up for yourself, take up the space that you need and really advocate for yourself. And this is one thing like I want people to take away from this podcast is to advocate for yourself. If you don't feel comfortable, it doesn't matter if you're wrong or it's a quote unquote, you feel it's a silly question. There's no such thing as a silly question. You got the question because you don't have the knowledge. That's not your fault. You know, and you want better understanding. That's not your fault. And you have a right for that.
Absolutely.
And if I didn't advocate for myself like as much as I have, God knows where I would be.
That advocacy is essential. I've had to do that a number of times, and I found that because of my personality, it was a bit easier. But it also made me question, if you're not someone who will interrogate something or ask questions about something, should you then get lesser treatment? And I felt like that's not fair.
It's really difficult because I personally feel, because of my personality, people take advantage. I'm quite like a chilled, relaxed, like quiet. So I find it a bit more difficult to assert myself, especially like where I'm like ultra short and tiny. People, and I know that I don't look my age.
Yeah, same
and
girl.
People take advantage of that, so they think you're like
Some little
stupid
girl,
or like
unknowledgeable.
uneducated or whatever the case may be. And it had in the past taken me a lot longer to get to the points that I need to get with, like, I don't know, doctors or people or even work, for example. And now it's like, no, I'm going to advocate for myself because I don't deserve that treatment.
Yeah.
And it's more so when I do these things, I'm training myself rather than anyone else to advocate even better, you know?
Exactly. And from a self-care perspective, do you find that Ivy and Bo is helping you with that?
1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%. So just the act of being tactile, and like, I'm a very creative person, and just creative expression is very healing to the mind, body and soul. And like dampening that is not very good, especially for someone that is naturally creative.
Yeah.
The society we live in is not very like, well, it depends on what like groups you kind of hang around with, but generally this rat race of a get up, go to work, come back, so on and so forth, cook dinner, wash, sleep, all of that stuff doesn't allow for creativity. And I'm trying to really slow that down. Being tactile also helps with like bringing you out of your mind and back into your body, bringing you back into the present moment. So it helps a lot with like depression and anxiety and things like that, to kind of be more mindful. And then just like working with Mother Nature.
Yeah.
I think it's just so roundhousing and like so amazing. I love it. Like it's hard work. It doesn't get rid of the hard work. Flowers are very temperamental. They remind me of like women, you know, each flower has their own like requirements and things like that. And I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So tell, for people that don't know, what is Ivy and Bo?
So Ivy and Bo is a floral artistry service. We're not just a florist that we just, you know, gather flowers together. We really do try to make each bouquet an art. We provide brand like services for brand activations, private events as well, and also like luxe bouquets and things like that.
I love it. How long have you been doing this?
I started it in the summer.
Okay.
So like literally just as the summer holidays started, I said, you know what, I've got time now off of work. I'm going to just throw myself into it. And I have to say, like, out of anything that I've done over the years, and I've done a lot, this has been like the most touching, the most sentimental, and the most successful so quickly, if that makes sense. So like, I don't want to talk too much. But it's going really, really well.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think finding something that feels purposeful,
that's it,
helps with managing your mind, body, soul, your alignment, even in balancing your hormones. I was listening to a soundbite of a conversation that a former PT was having on a panel. Yeah. And she was talking about a lot of what I'm advocating for with Gynae, which is the importance of, like, I call them the big three: nutrition, exercise, movement, and management of stress. Yeah. And how they play into your menstrual cycle and just your life psyche in general. Yeah. But she also touched on sleep. And not just going to sleep, but having quality sleep and getting to all the phases of sleep. Yeah. But then the next thing she touched on was purpose. Yeah. And she talked about the Chinese theory Ikigai, which is essentially that circle where it's like, what do you love doing? What can you get paid to do? What does the world need? And I can't remember the fourth one. I know someone's probably saying it, but the fourth one. Yeah. And essentially she was like, once you kind of marry all of those 5 things together, they actually reduce and / prevent your ability to get disease, chronic disease, and like move away from all of those things.
This is something I forgot to mention before. So like after my surgery, and I was not feeling really good. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and that is why I was experiencing like all these joint pains. I do think, and they don't know like technically what causes it within the body. It can be triggered by stress or like injury and things like that. Obviously, prior to all of this going on, I didn't have fibromyalgia, and I had whatever stress going on, and I was fine. Yeah. I personally think that it's exactly the same as that. That, what would you call it? Ikigai. That the stress of losing my brother, the stress of the surgery as well, and like the shock to the system, losing all of my left ovaries. And as much as like doctors will say, oh, it doesn't affect anything, you have 2 ovaries for a reason, and just removing that, I don't know what it's done to my hormones.
Yeah.
I said to myself when I got that diagnosis, I'm not going to allow this to continue. And I think because of a lifelong journey of suppressing my emotions, again, just being quite a relaxed and laid back, stoic person, and not allowing those emotions to be expressed, because, you know, in society, any woman that does that, you just, you know, you're over the top, especially as a black woman, you're an angry black woman, or you're this, you're that, and the other. It's just like, you learn to kind of mask everything that you're feeling and not honor your feelings. And this is where boundaries really came into play for me. And also like honoring myself and how I feel.
Yeah.
This is why I work from how I feel all the time. And if I don't feel like doing it,
It's a no.
that's it.
And what would you, moving forward into your motherhood journey, what would you tell your children about stress and how to manage it as they get older? Not only when they get older into like adulthood, but as they come into their teenage years, or more of them come into their teenage years, you're younger to become like, do you know what I mean, older, and like start feeling like I am this type of person in the world, or I want to do this, I want to leave this impact. What would you tell them about stress?
I don't think I would naturally focus on the word stress, because I know like no matter what we do, no matter how good our life is, we're going to experience stress, and every human has the ability to deal with stress. It's more so me teaching them how to deal with situations so that it doesn't exacerbate that stress, if that makes sense. So honoring their emotions, honoring their feelings, expressing themselves in whichever way they need to. Like I've got 2 sons. I'm not going to tell them, oh, you can't cry, or you can't be upset. I do have a thing with my kids that I will say, like, if you really need to talk about something and you're scared, just come and ask me for a safe space. I then lock and key my reactions down. And I let them just say whatever it is they have to say. And sometimes they may need to tell me about myself, you know, or they might need to ask me a question, or they want to tell me about something that's happened with friends or school or someone else. And I want them to know that no matter what they have to come and say, not to be scared about doing that, because it's that fear that makes them stay in situations for longer, or that fear of lack of support, or lack of advocacy or validation of their feelings that makes people stay in situations for longer. Things like grooming or like bad relationships, anything it could literally be. You sometimes need someone to come and like, well, obviously you always need someone to come and speak about with those things. So I want them to know that they have that with me, and I'll always advocate for them.
I love that. I love that. And before we wrap, well, first of all, actually, thank you for sharing, like,
That's okay,
so passionately. And I know it's not easy to talk about this type of stuff. So I appreciate that you gave yourself the courage. And you allowed yourself to share it. And I think, and my hope is that whatever comes of this, that at least one more person feels like, even if they could associate an experience that they've had with even one part of what you've gone through, they begin to feel like, okay, I'm not by myself. Or, okay, this is the kind of thing that she said. Or like, I know now to ask for the head nurse to get my situation moved forward. But I always ask the guest I always give the guest an opportunity to ask me a question. It can be about my work. It can be about your work. It can be about anything.
Okay, so my question to you is, in your wildest dreams, what would be the aim for the Gynae project? Where would you want to see it in 5 or 10 years' time?
In 10, I'm going to go with 10 years. I would actually, my wildest dream, because I think my wildest dream in the 10-year plan might be different.
Okay.
Because I think my wildest dream might take longer than 10 years.
Right.
So I'm going to go with wildest dream. So my wildest dream is to have a women's wellness centre.
Okay.
And in this wellness centre, you can see a gynecologist, you can see a nutritionist, you can see a dietitian, you can get a wax, you can get a facial, you can go to the spa, and it's a place that you come to and just feel like holistically taken care of.
Nice.
So that's essentially, and I've actually seen a building in my local town that's like derelict, and I'm like,
that's mine.
This would be a good building. It's got good parking, so you can come there for the day.
Nice.
And it really doesn't feel like clinical. It feels like spa.
Nice.
It's like very atmospheric, soft, warm, like just, people being well in this place holistically. So that's my wildest dream. for Gynae Project.
Oh, I hope to visit.
I
I'll be
can't wait to
waiting.
see your name
Yeah.
booked in.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see your name booked in. But yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For sharing. And thank you guys for listening. Before we wrap, Rhianna, tell people where they can follow you, where they can find you.
You can follow me at Ivy and Beau. So it's ivy.and.beau on Instagram or www.ivyandbeau.co.uk.
Perfect. Well, thanks for listening, guys. Love you. Bye.